Welcome, everyone. I'm Raymar Rodriguez, the head of marketing at SpeakerHub, and today we have an incredible promise for you. By the end of this session, you'll know how to get booked for a paid speaking gig in just 20 minutes a day, even if you're just starting out. You don't need a list of speaking leads or even know what to say to the host. I know it sounds too good to be true, but stick with us and we'll show you exactly how to get it done. But first, let me introduce our guest. We have Ron Story Jr., the owner and head of product at SpeakerHub. Ron has an extensive background in growth marketing for software companies and has successfully transitioned those skills into the speaking industry. Welcome, Ron.
Hey, thanks for having me, Raymar.
Let's start with the origin story. Can you take us back a few years and tell us how your journey in the speaking industry began?
Yeah, so basically, my background is as a growth hacker. And a growth hacker is basically someone that software startups hire to kind of see the unseen. So on the outside, certain people see systems. My job as a growth hacker was to look a little bit beneath the system and to find a way to grow the company that wouldn't cost a lot of money that everybody else was missing.
Interesting. Can you share a specific moment that led you to the speaking industry?
Yeah. So I was working helping software startups in downtown St. Louis to grow their companies, as I mentioned, as a growth hacker. And one of the people in my office, they said, "Hey, we were friends. They said, "Hey, can you do that growth hacking thing for the speaking industry?" And I'm like, what do you mean? They're like, "I need speaking gigs. I'm a John Maxwell consultant, and we need speaking gigs. There's a lot of competitors. I think there's like thousands of John Maxwell consultants." So they were like, "Can you do the growth hacking thing and help me to get speaking gigs?" So that's how I was first introduced.
That's amazing. And it sounds very challenging. How did you approach this puzzle?
Oh, so basically, growth hacking in my mind is just a puzzle that needs to be resolved. And what I realized is that if I could solve this puzzle for them, I probably have solved it for everyone else in the speaking industry. So that's what I got to working on. And guess what? In less than 5 days, I had gotten them booked for 5 opportunities. Well, actually, they weren't booked, but they got the meetings. So I booked the meetings with the host or the meeting planner, not the actual gig. It's up to them to negotiate the gig, but I take credit for those 5 meetings.
That's amazing. And so, what are your next step? What's your next step in this industry?
Well, at that time, one of the biggest things that I had learned was that it was all about the data. If you had really good data, then you could really help a lot of people because you needed to use that data in order to get people booked. So what I did is I already had a company where we were doing the sales meetings and I added speaker booking to our list of services. So I started working with some of the top speakers in the world that were John Maxwell consultants and some that weren't John Maxwell consultants. Actually, I want to share a video. This is from one of my good friends. His name is Odell, and we've worked together now for 4 or 5 years, and he remembers the old days back when we used to work with a company called Five Contacts when we first started helping speakers to get booked.
Hey, what's up? This is Odell Bazell, the world's favorite speaker, and I am the founder of Public Speaking Profits and the Perfect Speaker Coaching Program. I'm just excited to share my experience with Five Contacts. I've been using email marketing for years, and I've been doing a pretty good job at it. I made about a $500,000 just through emails alone. But when I tell you that the Five Contacts team, what they do, helping you find the leads that you should be reaching out to and reaching out to them. In the first week, I set up 7 calls. Are you listening to me? 7 calls with targeted people that are prime and ready to buy my offer. Never had an experience like this before. I've done Facebook ads, Instagram ads, even LinkedIn ads, and never had this experience. You would be crazy if you didn't book Five Contacts for a consultation so they can show you how to move your marketing in the right direction.
That's really impressive. That's an amazing thing that he said all of that. What did you learn from working with more speakers?
Yeah, as I mentioned, we realized it was just about the data. If you had the contact information, you were the king of the world, right? As the old saying goes, the man with one eye in the town full of blind people, the man with one eye is king. And even though I knew nothing about the speaking business, I was the person that had the one eye that could see everything. So everyone came to me looking for data. So we ended up starting a data company called PitchDB or Pitch Database. And all that it had was over 3 million contacts for different conferences and other types of stages that speakers would want to be a part of.
Amazing. And how did PitchDB change the game for you?
Well, PitchDB gave me a door and a window into all of the different careers of speakers. So now, not only did I have the data, but I got to see how they operated. I got to see all the behind the scenes and that there were 3 different categories of speakers, right? That was the main thing. I found out that there were emerging speakers who were just getting started and they were doing maybe 1 gig, less than 1 gig a month, right? And they charged like $3,000. Like they were just getting started. And then there were the professional speakers. They had been doing it for a while. They were probably full-time doing 1 gig a month, but they were charging anywhere between $3,000 to $6,000 for a speaking gig. And then there were these elite speakers who were speaking 2 times a month. They were doing the biggest conferences. They charged tens of thousands of dollars for their opportunities. It was like, oh, there's different levels to this, as they like to say. There's levels to this game. And once I was able to see that, I was able to improve even more our processes to where it just became automatic. I want to actually share another testimonial from one of our clients. Her name is Dr. Pamela Ellis, and she remembers the second stages of PitchDB when we had transitioned from 5 contacts to PitchDB, and we started to get her booked pretty regularly. Watch this video.
I have found the email campaign that you have been doing to be the most effective marketing lead generation that I have done in a while, or if ever, because the emails are so effective in terms of getting people to open and also respond. And I don't know what it is about your copy, and I'm just like, I need to emulate that wording, but they work. They work. And that's been probably my biggest issue, is that I now need some additional support in terms of responding, especially when I'm traveling. And so I wanted to talk with you about, I don't know if you even have a service like that, but just kind of what I can do about all of the backlog I have now in terms of emails that I haven't responded to yet.
That's really impressive, Ron. I love to see those testimonials from clients. I want to know, like, what kind of results have you seen?
Well, I mean, over the last 12 months, to kind of put it in perspective, I don't think anybody has sent more booking pitches than I have, right? Our team in our company, we sent over 400,000 pitches in the last 12 months. Now, these pitches weren't just for podcasts. They were for small stages also. They were for corporate consulting. They were for conferences. And they were for press. So we've booked thousands of meetings. I mean, like close to 10,000 meetings with meeting planners. So we know a little bit about how to pitch and how to get booked.
That's crazy. So I want to dive into some specifics. Like, I want to know, what are the 3 critical observations that you've made?
Well, I learned a lot from working with these 4,000 speakers. I interviewed 4,000 of them. We had 300 done for you clients in the last 12 months where we got them booked. I learned a lot. But the main thing that I learned was that these speakers are always looking for more stages to get on, right? And I was like, well, how do they do it? Well, I found that there are 3 ways to get booked for a speaking gig, right? There's only 3 ways, right? The first way is that you can sit back and wait on someone to find you. Maybe you create your website, Maybe you put content on LinkedIn. You may have created an old SpeakerHub account where you're in the directory or some other speaking directory like that. And you're just waiting for the person to find you, right? The second way is that you can get referred to different opportunities. So maybe someone heard you speak in an opportunity, right? And then they said, hey, we want you to come speak at our place. Or the event planner recommended you. And the third way is basically you proactively find the events that you want to speak at. You go to the website, you Google search, you go to the website, and you find that event, and then you proactively reach out to them. Those are the only three ways I know to get booked at for a speaking gig.
That's amazing. I want to know if you have any growth hacks, if you can share any of those.
Of course. So let's talk about that one. The 3 ways to get booked. That seems obvious. Like, I didn't teach you anything new, but my job's a growth hacker. I'm not supposed to see the obvious. I'm supposed to see the underneath thing, right? So one of the biggest growth hacks when it comes to getting booked is that most average speakers do it in the wrong direction, right? They do it the wrong way. They do it in reverse, right? Mm-hmm. So the first thing they do is they create a profile and they wait to have people come book them, right? But the professional elite speaker, they do that first, right? The first thing they do, they do that last. The first thing they do is they find the events they want to speak at, they find the data, and they proactively are outreaching every single day. One of the things we did with Odell is at one point, we sent 30,000 pitches for him in 1 year. Wow. And people wonder why he does 50 and 60 gigs a year, right? Because we're constantly pitching him and constantly building those relationships with the event planners. So that's what they do differently. The third option isn't proactively reaching out. That's the first option. So they invest a lot of time and energy in getting those first gigs going. And then they get referrals from those gigs. So if you're a new speaker and you don't have any gigs, how can you get referrals? Doesn't make sense. You need a gig first to get the referrals. So they proactively reach out. They get referrals from those gigs, either from the host or from someone in the audience. And then lastly, if a host happens to find them on LinkedIn or see one of their posts about their other speaking gigs, the host will find them and reach out. But they're really not counting on that because they've already gotten so much action from the top that if a host happens to find them, they're happy. If a host never finds them, doesn't matter because they're reaching out to the host proactively.
And what about the second observation that you had for us?
Well, the second observation is that these guys are everywhere. They're everywhere. They're on podcasts. They're doing small groups, and then they're taking the recordings from that and they're uploading them. They're doing large conferences where they get the cool pictures, right? They're writing for magazines and they're posting their thought leadership magazine articles on LinkedIn and on Twitter and other things of that sort. So what I found is that these elite speakers, what separates them from everyone else is that they're everywhere at all times, right? They want to be on all types of stages.
Amazing. And then what's the second growth hack for it?
Well, here's the growth hack from that. Again, a lot of emerging or pro speakers that aren't the elite, they're everywhere too. Every once in a while, they are on a podcast or they may do a small group meeting, or if they're good, they'll get a conference, but they're kind of doing it haphazardly, right? So I noticed something that we branded the speaker flywheel. So after watching this and putting people through it, I'm like, oh, we got to call it something. We're going to call this the speaker flywheel. So this is a SpeakerHub term that we're giving you that we use in-house. And the flywheel is basically when an elite speaker uses gigs to lead to another gig, right? So let me show you how it works if I was a new speaker. Let's say I've never had a speaking gig before. So the first thing I would do is I would try to get on as many podcasts as possible. Why? Because on podcasts, you get to share your message and people get to hear you talk about your point of view on whatever topic you're talking on, right? But once you're on that podcast, now when you go to try to get a small crowd type of speaking gig at a local association or something like that, you can send those podcast interviews so that they can hear you talk about what you talk about, and you don't run the risk of embarrassing the person that invited you, right? So now you're using the podcast as a way for the host to try you out. And then, you know what you do? When you get that hosted meeting, what they do? They get the hosted meeting at the small group and they take a friend with them and they record the entire thing, right?
Yes.
But they don't just record one time to get a speaker reel. They record each one of them because every time they speak, they're speaking in front of a different audience. So instead of having one speaker reel like the average speaker has, the elite speakers have 5, 10 different speaker reels that they can use. So when they apply for a conference, they send the speaker reel that's relevant to that conference. Do you see what I mean? That is
Absolutely.
that's huge because now they're leveraging small things to get bigger things, right? So they took they did a bunch of podcasts. They used those to get booked for the small groups. They used the speaker reels from those small groups to send them to the appropriate conferences. Now, once they have those conferences, they start applying for byline articles or to be writers for reputable magazines and media outlets, whether that's television or things of that sort. Now that person says, well, yo, you spoke for IBM and you spoke at Netflix? Yeah, come on our show and tell us about it. Wait, your client is Kraft Foods in the U.S. or Bayer Drugs outside of the U.S.? Of course you could come on our news and give us 3 tips on how to do whatever you do. This builds that momentum. That's what most of the regular speakers miss. They're doing sporadic things, but they're not using them in the right order, which we call the speaker flywheel, to build the momentum to get on better podcasts, better associations, better conferences. And you just keep doing it and you keep doing it. If you look at Alex Hormozy, he's always on podcasts doing interviews for free on YouTube. He never complains about it. He's doing small group meetings. He uploads those to YouTube. He's doing big conferences, right? Lisa Nichols, same thing, right? There's a gang of people that are following this playbook of the speaker flywheel. Small stages that lead to bigger stages that just keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
And it makes total sense. And it's also a powerful strategy to follow.
100%.
I want to know, what's your final observation?
Well, I mean, after the speaker flywheel, actually, let me show you this because I think people will get it, right? I think the speaker flywheel works for everybody. And most people think that they have to do all of these things at once, in which you shouldn't. If you're a beginning speaker, you should be doing the flywheel a little bit different than everyone else. So let me share that with you first before we go to that next thing, Raymar.
Okay.
Right? So this is basically SpeakerHub Pro, right? But I want to show you the flywheel and what we mean by this. So the flywheel, as I mentioned, is made up of 4 different types of stages. There are podcast and virtual stages. There are local associations and small groups. There are conferences, whether they're public or corporate, annual or corporate conferences. And then there's media outlets. That includes television, media, radio, and magazines. But let me break it down a little bit. So if I'm a beginning speaker, I need to focus on less stuff. I'm probably not going to get in the media, and I'm probably not going to get booked for conferences. So I really need to focus in on the emerging speaker flywheel, right? And that means me getting on podcasts and doing associations. That's all I should be focused on, podcasts and associations, right? But if I'm a pro speaker, I should be focusing on conferences because I got on the podcast already. I've been doing those consistently. I've been doing little small groups, but I need to expand to get those bigger conferences. So this is the pro speaker flywheel. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely.
And then there's always that elite speaker. There's the elite speaker flywheel where they need to incorporate media outlets so that they can be known as a thought leader. They've already hit the emerging stages. They're doing conferences regularly. Now they need to establish thought leadership so that they can double their prices. So I can almost promise you, that the speaker who speaks on business probably gets paid less than the speaker that speaks on business that writes for Inc. or Forbes or one of the large business publications, right? So we call that the speaker flywheel, and we think it is one of the best ways to build momentum in your speaking career.
That it's really amazing. Thank you for sharing all of that. Going back to the growth hacks, we were stuck at two. Do you want to finish up and wrap up for the third growth hack?
Yeah. Well, let me tell you. So the first one was really simple. You've been doing it in reverse, right? So you got to start proactively pitching first, right? The second one was you got to be everywhere, but not everywhere sporadically. As we mentioned, you need to be using the flywheel to build momentum to have small gigs turn into big gigs. Make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Well, the third thing is the most important. These speakers figured out 3 ways to get paid, right? So the third thing I learned is that there's only 3 ways to get paid for a speaking gig. You can get paid to show up. You can get paid when you're there, which means you're selling from the stage, or maybe you have a booth in the back of the room or in the exhibit hall, right? They'll give you one of those to sell your goods, right? Or the third way is you can get paid after the event, which means that if I go on a podcast, I get interviewed, they didn't pay me to show up. And if the podcast is pre-recorded, I didn't make any money during the pre-recording. But afterwards, people may have followed me on social media. I get maybe 10 leads a week from just me going on podcasts. Over the last 4 years of running our companies, I've gotten 3,000 customers, and I can show them to you. I have documented 3,000 customers from me going on podcast only. I don't do any Facebook ads or LinkedIn ads or anything. I go on podcast because I believe that that's the best way to do it, and that's what I teach. So those are the 3 ways to get paid: before, during, and after an event. So the elite, I have a saying that I say: always get paid, and if you can, get paid in all ways, right? So the elite guys, they figured out, I don't just want the fee showing up. If I can get all 3 of them, I will, right? Where most speakers, the average speakers or the emerging speaker, they usually don't have a product or service to sell in the back of the room. They usually don't have a consulting service to offer if they go speak at a local association where they can sell their consulting to the executives in the room, right? They usually don't have that. But these elite speakers always had that, right? They always, were like, look, I'll do the free gig because I'm going to sell my product. There's a guy, Russell Brunson. He did this conference called 10X. You can look it up on YouTube. And he sold $3 million worth of his product, ClickFunnels, from the stage. There was no way that they would have paid him $3 million to give a speech. That's like Barack Obama, Donald Trump money. They weren't paying him $3 million to show up. But he had realized, always get paid. And if you can, get paid in all ways. So he sold from the stage. He made $3 million that day. All of these elite speakers, what they're doing is they're figuring out how to get paid in at least 2 of those 3 ways. So they may get free up front, but they got a booth and they're going to get clients afterwards. Or they sell from they get paid to show up, but they find a way to give their social media out to download their slides to get that third group of people who may follow them and buy from them in the future. That was the biggest thing. Like, oh, you don't just have to get a check up front. You can speak for free and make 5 times more. I started doing that. I did a gig last month. Actually, it was in March in Detroit. I flew from Columbia to Detroit for free, paid for my own flight, my own hotel suite and everything. And then I sold from the stage. And we've done probably $20,000 worth of business from that.
That is amazing, and it makes total sense. Do you have any bonus observation for us?
Yep, here's the last one, and then we're gonna end with this one because I think this is one of the most important ones. The elite speakers were never afraid to invest in getting the data and the help that they needed, right? So what they would do is if they needed a list of leads, they would buy it, right? If they needed contact information, they would hire someone to do that for them. They weren't Googling and making spreadsheets to get contact information, not them themselves. They would outsource that to another company. Either they bought the data from someplace or they hired an assistant that would go out and do the Googling and putting in spreadsheets. So that was the other observation, is that they weren't Googling. The best speakers were not Googling speaking opportunities.
Yes.
You want to know the hack?
What is it?
You're looking at them. I'm the hack. This, what they would do is they would hire us to do that for them, right? They would use a tool like SpeakerHub, or at that time it was PitchDB, right? They would use a tool like PitchDB to get that data, right? So they weren't afraid to invest, but they knew that time was their best friend. And if they could get their time back and not have to spend a bunch of time Googling, it would change the world for them. So
Yes.
that's one of the things that we were able to create, which is we're going to be introducing to you all today SpeakerHub Pro, which is all of the data from my previous company. All of that speaking data is coming in the SpeakerHub, plus more features. And here's the great thing. It's built to enable you guys to be able to use the speaker flywheel in 15 minutes a day. 15 minutes, just 15 minutes, right? How cool is that?
That is fantastic. Can you tell us about SpeakerHub Pro? Can you show us SpeakerHub Pro? It would be amazing to see.
Yeah, let me show you, right? So here's SpeakerHub Pro. Let me do the world debut of SpeakerHub Pro. So let me put these in here. Ron Story Jr. at SpeakerHub.com. Right, and let me put in my password. All right, so now we're in. This is beautiful. This is what we call the branding kit. All I'm going to do is put in my basic information about where I work, right? SpeakerHub, our website, which is my speaker website, Ron Story Jr. I'm going to put in my LinkedIn, right? And then I'm located in Medellin, Colombia. My job title is Head of Product. And my job description, I help speakers to get booked for paid speaking gigs, podcasts, interviews, and press coverage using the speaker flywheel. All I do is click accept the terms and click next. Now it's going to ask me about my goals. Well, I want to use this flywheel. So I want to be on 4 podcasts a month minimum. And then I'm a professional speaker, right? So I want to do at least 1 association a month, right? When it comes to media outlets, I want to at least be pitching 1 of those every month. So I'm going to put that there. And then I want to do conferences. So I'm going to aim at doing a conference a month and a local small gig. I may not get them, but those are my goals, right? And then I have a podcast. SpeakerHub has the World to Speaker podcast that's weekly. I want to invite 4 guests a month onto our podcast. All right, that's it. Look at this.
Amazing.
Look at this. In 5 minutes, it went ahead and it wrote a bio. No, it's not perfect. I actually work at SpeakerHub, right? But it said I worked at Speaker Flywheel, which is pretty much, that's all I talk about, is the Speaker Flywheel, right? But I'm Ron Story, your go-to strategy for elevating your speaking career from Medellin, Colombia. With my expertise, I have crafted and refined a system specifically designed to empower speakers like you to secure lucrative speaking engagements, high-profile podcast interviews, and valuable press coverage. My approach is centered on leveraging the unique strengths of each speaker to create opportunities that not only showcase their expertise, but also ensure their message resonates with the right audience at the right time. This is incredible. Isn't this beautiful? I mean, this describes me. Besides that one mistake that I went in and edited, this is freaking credible. So
And
down
in
here at the bottom,
seconds.
it even just tells me who my target audience is, right? So I have professional speakers, industry experts, and thought leaders looking to expand their brand. I mean, this is super duper great. I'm not going to spend a bunch of time here because I want to show you how you can do the speaking part, right? So let me go next and let me connect my email address really quickly. And then we're going to be ready to pitch. Done, just that quick. So in less than 3 minutes, I'm 100% set up with the bio, my email address is connected. I know my target audience, all of those things. But if I wanted to go in and edit it, I could just click here on my branding kit and go in and make the edits I want to make. Is that cool?
Amazing.
Right? But here's the cool part. The AI has been working in the background to start matching me with the right podcast. So look at this. I got all these different speaking podcasts that are coming up. Speaking Your Brand, Public Speaking for Women. I'm about to reach out to Carol. Watch this. I clicked on the title. It shows me the podcast. I can see that she interviews other people. I can listen to an episode here if I want, right? I can play that episode and listen to it. It was just playing there. And if it's one that I think fits, all I do is add it to my contact list and hit save. Once I've done that, the software has prepared everything for me to pitch. So I'm going to click pitch. Now we're verifying that we have the right information. And in less than 5 seconds, I should have a pitch written for me. There it is, perfectly unique for Carol. And here's what it says. Hey, Carol, I came across your podcast, Speaking Your Brand, Public Speaking for Women, and I was truly inspired by the impactful work you're doing to empower women through public speaking. As the head of product at SpeakerHub, I share a similar passion for helping speakers elevate their careers, amplify their voices. I believe there could be great synergy between our platforms. I would be thrilled to explore potential collaboration opportunities with you. I'm impressed by the platform you've created to support these perfect, purpose-driven women in shaping their message and becoming influential figures in their fields. I mean, this is incredible. Maybe I want to take that out. Like, I don't even want to say that long thing. I just want to say this one thing and get to the point. You see, I can go in and edit it if I don't like everything.
Yes.
And then I can send it. I'm sending it. Done. We just pitched Carol right here live. Carol, if you're watching this, my bad. I just pitched you. I'm coming on the show. I'm coming on the show, Carol, right? So now I can follow up in the next day or so if I haven't heard anything back. But that's the beauty of pitching with SpeakerHub Pro. I can also do this for local associations around the world. I can do it for media outlets. We have over 30,000 media outlets right now. This will be up to 200,000 media outlets. And I can do this for conferences, right? So right now it has 11,000 conferences. It'll be over 40,000 conferences at launch. Isn't this incredible?
That is completely amazing. And thank you for sharing all of this valuable information.
Wait. I want to pitch a conference because people be thinking it takes a long time to pitch a conference. Let's find, what's an obscure conference? China. I want to pitch conferences in China. I type it in, it brings up the different conferences in China. I want to go and talk at the International Conference on Nursing Ethics that's this winter in China. So I'm going to come here, I'm going to click save to a list, and I'm going to click pitch. And you see, it's queuing it up. And in 5 seconds, I just wrote that pitch to this conference, just that fast. How you going to beat this? Like this, no Google search, no Google.
Thank you so much, Ron, for giving us a little demo and a sneak peek of how a Speaker Hub Pro works. I want to know if you could give us a breakdown on how the Speaker Flywheel works for different stages of a speaker's career.
Yeah, I'll definitely do that. Let me share my screen with you here because I think that, as we mentioned earlier, a lot of speakers, they do things in the wrong order. And the order of the flywheel is really important. So with SpeakerHub Pro, you're going to get all of these different tools, but you want to use them the right way. So here's the flywheel. And as I mentioned, the flywheel consists of 4 different sections. There's the podcast, there are the associations and small group meetings, there are the corporate and annual conferences, and then there's the media outlets, which are print, radio, things of that sort. So let me focus in on the intersection. If you're an emerging speaker, you really need to be focused on getting booked on podcasts and associations. You don't want to waste your time pitching a $30,000 conference that you don't have the experience to even book. We also don't want you wasting your time trying to get magazine articles right now, because that's really not what's going to help you. It's actually more stage time and more time with your message. So here's what you should be focused on if you're an emerging speaker. You should be focused on the first thing, which is pitching 2 podcasts a day. Now, you're not going to get booked on 2 podcasts, but if you pitch 2 a day, at the end of the year, you would have been on 48. That's a life-changing amount of podcasts, because you've been on those 48 podcasts. When someone Googles you, they're going to see, holy crap, this dude really knows his stuff. He's on everybody's podcast. How cool is this? But it also allows you to send those podcasts to the associations that you're pitching. So you should be pitching 3 associations a day, right? And that'll get you 12 speaking gigs. Now, that doesn't sound like a lot, but the average speaker, remember, we have 60,000 speakers in SpeakerHub, and we do surveys all the time. The average speaker does 5 gigs a year, right? There are some all the way on the extreme, but the average speaker does 5 gigs a year. So let me tell you what the results of this is. If you do 48 podcasts and you appear on and you do 1 speaking gig a month, you're in the top 10% of all speakers in the world. The top 10% of all speakers in the world. So that's our basic plan for the emerging speaker. So I'm going to share again, and I'm going to share now the plan for the professional speaker, right? And what they should be doing. It takes a little bit more time, but you'll see the value really quickly. So here's our plan for the center row, which is the professional speaker. The professional speaker is different from the emerging speaker because they've added another stage that they need to pitch. They go from pitching podcasts and associations to adding conferences to that flywheel. Now, remember, they're just not doing one association and then saying, I'm ready for a conference. They're doing a lot of associations so that they can get a bunch of speaker reels that they can use at that conference to get booked at that conference. So they're doing podcasts to build momentum into associations. They're doing associations to get the speaker reels that they need in order to send to the specific conferences. So what does that look like? All that they do is they add 5 pitches. So they're pitching their 2 podcasts to build momentum. They're pitching their 3 associations to get their speaker reels, and they're pitching their 5 conferences to get their 4 conferences a year. So if you're a professional speaker and you do 48 podcasts, you do 12 associations, and you do a quarterly conference, which puts you at 4 conferences, you're in the top 5% of all speakers in the world as a full-time speaker, right? So this is all you need to do if you're a professional speaker. How cool is that?
That is so amazing, Ron. Thank you for sharing all of this.
So let me share a little bit about the elite speaker, right? This is the cool part. The elite speaker is on the outside of that flywheel, and they've used the podcast. They've gotten the speaker reels from the associations. They've even gotten the cool pictures in front of the big crowd for the conferences. But now they're trying to establish thought leadership. So they're reaching out to different media outlets to get on television, to get writing opportunities, to be able to write thought pieces for the major magazines. They're trying to set themselves apart as the leader of their industry, right? They've already invested the years of moving from an emerging speaker and the years of going from just a regular professional speaker to be able to dominate. These elite speakers are the ones that are changing the world. And they usually do a little bit more work than the average speaker. So they're going to do double time, right? Because they're trying to speak all the time. So their goal is to get 4 publications a year, to get on 96 podcasts, like Lisa Nichols. I think she's done 2,400 podcasts, something outrageous like that. There's another guy, Sadhguru, this Indian yoga teacher. He does 5 interviews a day. Wow. I mean, it's amazing how people are using podcasts as a way to build their audience and get bigger stages, right? So they should be doing 96 podcasts a year. They're trying to speak at 2 associations a month, right? And then they want to do 8 conferences. So this is the full-time speaker that's doing anywhere from 20 to 40 gigs a year. This is their game plan if they're using SpeakerHub Pro and their Speaker Flywheel.
Amazing. Amazing. Thank you so much, Ron, again, for everything that you have shared with us. Everything is valuable. I love the demo. This is such a powerful tool for everyone that wants to grow their speaking career. How can our audience join SpeakerHub Pro?
Right now, we're still in beta. So if you're watching this video and you made it this far, click a link below and we're going to give you access. You're going to give you the first access to SpeakerHub Pro, and you'll be able to buy an account for the first time. And we know that most of us in these economic times, people are tired of having monthly payments, right? Nobody wants to pay for something forever. So we're giving you an opportunity to get access to SpeakerHub Pro at your level for 1 lifetime payment. 1 payment, not monthly. You can get it for 1 payment. Now, if you can't afford the 1 payment, that's okay. We have financing for that set up also so that you can break it down into monthly payments, but it won't be forever, right? So you can do this for 1 payment, which is the payments are guaranteed to be less than the fee that you will receive as a speaker, right? So if you're an emerging, it's going to be under $3,000. If you're a pro speaker, it's going to be less than $6,000. If you're an elite speaker, it's going to be less than $20,000 because this is what people charge. So you have the rest of your life to be able to give 1 speech and cover the payment. If you don't believe you can give 1 speech and cover what we're offering you today, this ain't for you. You got to raise your prices, bro. You got to be able to charge more if you're going to be elite. You can't be doing $300 speaking gigs.
Thank you so much, Ron, for your time, for the information, for everything that you have shown us today. I really think our audience will benefit from all of this. So yes, just if you want to sign up for SpeakerHub Pro, just click the link below. And then this is an amazing opportunity for everyone who wants to grow. And yeah, thank you again.
Yeah. So last thing, I think we got like $50,000 worth of bonuses at least on each level. It's like $45,000 worth of services and bonuses. Like some of it even includes us doing it for you, but you got to click and find out. But all right, I'm done.
Yes.
I'm tired. I need to finish drinking my soda here and get back to my day. So thanks again,
Amazing.
Raymar. Talk to you later. Have a great
Bye,
evening.
Ron. Bye, everyone.